Let's talk about style, more specifically art style and how to find yours. Hi there, Kim Salt here, your resident art auntie. And today I'll be guiding you through the wondrous yet gruesome process of birthing or even evolving your art style in just 8 painful steps. I'm only kidding, it's really not that bad. Or is it? Bear in mind, these are things that have informed my own art practice, but feel free to disregard whatever doesn't work for you. Often I feel like we think of style as this thing that will help us shine brighter in a huge sea of stars. That when it comes to distinguishing your favorite artists, their style is the thing that sets them apart from other artists. While I think there's a lot of truth to this, the pressure of molding our own style for the sake of style alone can smolder our ability to create. I think a more useful framework is to think of style as an unintended byproduct of having a crap ton of influences and thousands of drawing hours under your belt. That said, let's get into it. So how do you develop your own style? The first thing I'm going to talk about is influences and developing your taste. Let's break this down into 2 categories, shall we? The first we'll cover is everyday life. By this I mean, what are the things in your everyday life that fascinate and fulfill you, or a thing you find yourself obsessing over for better or worse? When you draw this thing, you lose all sense of time because you find it so fun to draw. You can use this obsession to your advantage. For example, what really affected the growth of my own style was watching a lot of ballet and hip-hop dancing, as well as ice skating videos. The way the figures moved through space caused me to accentuate anatomy in ways that would deepen the feeling of movement. It also made me think about posing more intentionally, the line of movement, as well as how negative space was created by a figure's limbs. I'm also a really big people watcher. I love memorizing people's fits so that I can draw them later. That's not creepy at all. The second category of influences, and the most obvious one sometimes, is the art and media you consume. This is life that has already been processed by someone else and distilled into an end product. It includes everything from film, TV, fine art, architecture, novels, video games, and illustration, all the way down to products on shelves and the fonts that grace them. In fact, one of the things that really affected my own style, for example, was originally studying graphic design in college. It helped me to recognize visual hierarchy, the way our eyes are manipulated to scan a page, as well as an attention to positive and negative space and the relationships between shapes. As Uncle Iroh says, "It is important to draw wisdom from many different places." When it comes to influences, I think we often make the mistake of drawing a little too closely to the artists we admire. Don't get me wrong, it's great to study our contemporaries in order to gain inspiration or even keep an eye on market trends. But rather than drawing inspiration entirely from the work of other illustrators, for example, we can also study sculpture or dance or nature walks. The more widely we can broaden our sources of inspiration, the more unique our style will be. In fact, I encourage you to write down a list of all the things you are influenced by, whether it be small things from life as well as works of art that you love, including music or film or books. This will serve you in step 2, which leads me to step 2, remix your influences. Cast a wide net and trawl your mind. Remember all the influences you made a list of in the previous step? Here's why we did that. Take a little something you like from each influence and make your own thing out of it. For example, maybe you like the way one graphic novelist does a thin monoline, or how a painter uses exaggerated shapes, or you like the palette a particular director uses in their films, and your favorite musician sings about sad things in outer space. Well, why not try combining all of these things together? Do you like how it looks? Keep iterating and tweaking until you do. Pull from more and more influences and your work will look even more unique. Don't forget that subject matter also informs style as well. In addition to working in different genres, whether it's vaporwave or horror or slice of life, you could even combine all 3. The subject of your artwork is also tied in. Dare to work with still lives or scenery or wildlife or even portraiture. The world is your oyster, and so is your artwork. When it comes to remixing influences, most artists do this at least subconsciously, but we're taking the accelerated route here, friends. So why does this work? Like I mentioned before, the greater your web of influence is, the less it will look like you are ripping another artist off. But even more to the point, the more unique and authentic your work will be. Which brings me to step 3, studies. For all this talking and absorbing, what good does that do if we're not drawing? Belying their name, studies are actually a lot of fun, I promise. Unless your study is of a bicycle, then I wish you the best of luck with that. But studies are simple exercises with the aim of strengthening how you use a particular media or depict specific subject matter. For example, you could do a study of anything from the composition of film stills, anatomy studies, still lifes, life drawing, masterwork copies, color theory studies, pencil, ink, paint, digital, pick your poison. Try something completely unfamiliar. Even if it comes out ugly, which is not something we should fear, think of it as something that is necessary. As the book Art and Fear by David Bales and Ted Orland asserts, the function of the overwhelming majority of your artwork is simply to teach you how to make the small fraction of your artwork that soars. One of the basic and difficult lessons an artist must learn is that even the failed pieces are essential. That said, get comfortable with making mistakes because everything is a learning opportunity. Cringe, I know, but it really does work. Step 4, technique. Remember all the studies you just did in step 3? All of these will help inform your technique. When you create work moving forward, those studies will form the building blocks of your style. By doing all these dang studies, you can find out which mediums and techniques you love and which ones you wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole again. Of the ones you like, you can also mix and match little things you learn in each of them to form something unique to you. This will inform the way that you make art and thus your style. Step 5, take stock. Look at the work you've created after you've gone through the previous steps. Notice anything you love about what you created? Anything you hate? Use these cues to inform the next artwork you create. Course correct if you don't feel that you're close enough to the list you made, or change the things on the list if they aren't working for you. Does your work look consistent? Do your pieces look like they were drawn in the same voice? But are there similarities and differences? Perhaps keep track of these in your mind as you create new works. What new themes do you want to explore in your work, and which ones from the past would you like to iterate on? When I was first putting a portfolio together as a young illustrator, I'd say that my pieces were really inconsistent. My style was all over the place, and sometimes things changed based on the subject I was illustrating. But that's okay. Over time, I made more and more pieces, and with each new one, I became closer to something that looked visually consistent. Step 6, develop your own running visual vocabulary. Remember the first thing I mentioned? Influences and developing taste, that's right. While being an artist pries our eyes open to the things around us, tucking away this and that to draw from later. Keeping a sketchbook can serve as, say, a style dictionary, with which you can keep a running glossary of different ways to draw things. Maybe you've figured out a distinct way of rendering noses, or maybe it's the way that you shade buildings. Perhaps you've developed a new way of rendering textures. You can recycle all of these techniques in your next work. And the sum total of all these creative choices, that's right, forms your style. Step 7, refine. This part requires diligence. At some point, or at many points, or in fact over and over, you will hit a wall, and inspiration alone will not be enough to fuel the work you create. Imagination and craft always seem to be in a race with one another, one outpacing the other as we evolve over time. You see why artists are so depressed? I'm just kidding. But let that be a source of comfort rather than of exasperation. Your favorite pros are struggling too. Refining is all about repeating all the previous steps over and over, whether consciously or not. Think of it like a rock getting smoothed down by rainwater over time. Maybe a rock has googly eyes. I mean, mine sure does. And step 8, why style is not important. All of that said, style is an elusive cat. You can't give her the pets. So despite all the reasons I listed as to why style is important, it's also not that important. So here's where I contradict everything I just told you. Even if you're an accomplished artist with many years under your belt already, if you're growing and evolving, the work that you created 6 years ago does not look the same as it does now. And that's a good thing. You're always going to be evolving and learning new things, which means your style isn't even going to be consistent over the years. So try not to sweat it too much. It'll come. What's the major takeaway from all of this? If you're worried about your style, just focus on making lots and lots of work. Keep absorbing and processing the things that you are drawn to, and feed your artwork with these things. Above all, keep going. If you hadn't already figured it out, these are the things I have to tell myself on a constant basis. So whether you're a beginner or a practiced hand, or somewhere in between, I hope this was helpful to you. Thanks so much for watching. I hope to see you in the next one.